Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available as podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Email us, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And tonight we will be known as Reason and Passion. You can guess who is who. He said, reasoning. You are definitely the passion in this relationship. Definitely. And I'm just that dull reason stuff.
Stop.
It's so true. Anyway, but between us, between reason and passion, is the soul. The soul resides and encompasses both. And here on the soul of the Everyman, we are here to survey the battlefield of which the soul is the place where these things battle. Our souls, Margaret, our souls are conflicted. Our souls are a place of conflict and of battle, constant battle. And in many ways, the battle itself is a distraction.
True.
But yet it is waged and it is fought. And many of us feel beset, pulled in both directions. And if you were to name those antipodes, name those poles, you would call one reason and one passion. And tonight is poetry night on the Soul of the Everyman, because Scott hates poetry night.
Stop.
He does. He hates poetry night. He's told us that privately. We're going to espouse it publicly. But one of our favorite poets is Khalil Gibran. And if you haven't, I've said this before, but if you haven't come across him or read him, he's well worth the investment. He's a wonderful, insightful, beautiful poet. And tonight, this is an excerpt from a writing of his called "The Prophet." And I think The Prophet itself was more couched in terms of almost like a narrative story. But of course, woven throughout the whole story are these wonderful poems, if you will, and they're couched as one character or another speaking. But if you ask somebody a question, they don't oftentimes just spout reams and reams of poetry. So it's obviously a little bit of a device. But regardless, it's not a hugely long poem, not on the scale of Longfellow, who can go on and on and on and on and on, and you're like, okay, Longfellow, do you have to prove your name, Longfellow? Being like, it's like, do we have to go? But so Khalil is often, I would say, Khalil is a lot more circumspect, or rather, his words carry much more weight. They're very well chosen. But this is somewhat long. So I think we'll do stanza by stanza, but this is on reason and passion is kind of the title of it. And what we can do, Margaret, is, I know I'm bad at this, but you're better at it. But because of the context of what we're doing, let's do a stanza at a time. So you take the first stanza, if you will. And
well,
I'll take. Go ahead. You have an idea?
Well, I'd like to. There are points in the poem that are a natural break, so I would go with that.
I would go with that too. So, without further ado, I will yield the floor to you.
Reason and passion. Your soul is oftentimes a battlefield upon which your reason and your judgment wage war against your passion and your appetite. Would that I could be the peacemaker in your soul, that I might turn the discord and the rivalry of your elements into oneness and melody. But how shall I, unless you yourself be also the peacemakers, nay, the lover of your elements?
Now, isn't this, this is wonderfully put, because it really talks about three entities in the sense of you have the reason and the passion, sort of personified, or at least placed as antipodes here, and then you have you. Khalil talks about you, and in some ways he abstracts it and said, "Would that I could be the peacemaker in your soul." But of course, what he really says is that no one can be except you yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here you are, as we mentioned in the beginning of the broadcast. You feel as though you are beset. But what are you beset by? You're beset by your own components, by your own elements, your element of reason, your element of passion, and to bring them together, to accept them, perhaps is the best way to put it. Totally would say you have to accept them, and therefore reconcile them. Say yes. Sometimes, it's the old phrase from Ecclesiastes: "I contain multitudes." Sometimes I am reason. Sometimes I am passion. Sometimes I am both. And I, the being that is I, the soul and the spirit and the body that is I, encompass all of them. But you have to get there. And I think oftentimes we start right there, which the poet says, which is in the battlefield.
Well, you must decide that you're going to be the peacemaker amongst all your elements. And meaning that, yes, you fight with yourself. And the interesting thing is, it's in the modern Western mindset, we kind of look at it in terms of the battle between the heart and the mind, which is not quite correct. But it's along the same lines. It's translating it up to the 21st century. So there's always a battle between my thinking part and my emotions, and it's like always needs to get refined, because what you're doing at that moment is recognizing the elements of who you are and understanding that they deserve attention, but you do not need to destroy one to satisfy the other. There is a harmony between all your elements, and it's deciding in that moment you will be the peacemaker.
And and a lot of the other times what we've talked about, and I'm again reminded of Tolle, is that once you come to that point of being the peacemaker, you also have to go beyond even that and say, I don't identify with reason. I don't identify with passion. I don't identify with the peacemaker. I become the consciousness which holds all of them, in the sense of tearing yourself into even these pieces, even tearing yourself into reason and passion, is still an artificial distinction. You are neither reason nor passion, nor do these things really become elements of you in the sense of different pieces of you. You have to unify them all into the consciousness, which is all those things, which encompasses all those things.
I don't think peacemaker is a broken part of you. Okay? When you're the idea of dividing yourself up into these elements of peacemaker is the integration point.
Yeah,
which is a balance point.
Okay.
Okay.
So becoming the peacemaker is encompassing both of them, is what you would say.
To be a peacemaker, you must have a broader field of operation than just the battle between A and B. You are encompassing all of it and seeing it from a higher vantage point. So it doesn't mean that you're identifying as Unit A or Unit B. You are the observer watching the field of interplay between A and B and preventing it from becoming a field of battle.
Okay, I like that. I also like the fact that you said higher vantage point. In essence, you abstract yourself from the conflict and you sit above it, in essence, and observe it and say, well, yes, both these things are merely two sides of a coin, not I am either this or I am that. I am passionate. I am...
You take yourself out of the situation to observe. Abstracting is always a mental process. It has nothing to do with it. It is from a point where your consciousness literally encompasses all of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, you said you have a different vantage point, and maybe abstraction is the wrong word, but the vantage point is that of elevation, and from the elevated position, it's like 3D versus 2D. If you say reason and passion are conflicting on a battlefield, it feels very 2D. It feels like we've got this plane.
Pong.
It feels like pong. If anyone understands what that is anymore, who didn't grow up in the 80s or have kids in the 80s, but it feels like a box or an oval or something upon which two armies have drawn up sides, and the peacemaker is the part, or is the position of elevation above it all, right? And we always say, I'll make myself above it all, and understand that the position of reason and the position of passion are artificially in conflict, and so that's that you're right. It's not necessarily you make a new element of yourself. You realize that you contain these things.
Right.
And the poet goes on, and if you wish, I can read. What would you like me to read? What's your break here that you were talking about? Because I don't want to go beyond what is the next logical break, if you will. Down to about here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is going to be bad. So I'm just warning you.
No, stop.
It's going to be great. Anyway, so your reason and your passion are the rudder and the sails of your seafaring soul. If either your sails or your rudder be broken, you can but toss and drift, or else be held at a standstill in mid-seas. For reason, ruling alone, is a force confining, and passion, unattended, is a flame that burns to its own destruction. Therefore let your soul exalt your reason to the height of passion, that it may sing, and let it direct your passion with reason, that your passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes. What I must say, when I read words like this, I think to myself, I could never write them. They're so incredibly evocative and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here Khalil, here Gibran says what we have just said in other words, that that these pieces are no more than components, the rudder and the sails of the boat, which is your seafaring soul. And here's this image of the soul. We had it in a different context in another show some time back. But this idea of the soul as a ship moving across these seas of life, the sea of life, and what does a ship need? A ship needs both a rudder and sails. And it's so interesting that, a rudder is that which controls direction, but sails are what power you. And we've always talked about emotion is power, it's energy. It rises up, and you can direct it. Undirected, as he says, it's no more than a flame that burns itself and burns you in the process. And then this beautiful analogy of an overbearing reason, which is nothing more than a force confining everything. Boxing, as we said in the mental, boxing everything in, everything's in a box. Versus passion unattended, which burns to destruction. It becomes the pain body. Totali's pain body is all from unrequited passion, from things that tear you into pieces. And compartmentalize all that energy in your past and in things which you endlessly brood upon. This offense or
Slight.
this slight, exactly. So, in integrating these things, he says that in this phrase, therefore let your soul exalt your reason to the height of passion, that it may sing. And let it direct your passion with reason. Confine your passion and direct it, that energy that rises, that it may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes. You just have to sit back there and think about it. It's such a beautiful turn of phrase.
The stanza where it says, therefore, let your soul exalt your reason to the height of passion, that it may sing. What does that mean to you?
Do you mean as a question?
Mm-hmm.
Song to me is, in many ways, the word imbued with the passion of emotion. Song, it consists of two things, the melody and the lyric. And you could look at the melody and the lyric as the passion and the reason. The lyric is words. It's a poem in many ways, many cases. A song's lyric can be read like a poem. But yet, every rearrangement of the music, every rearrangement of the energy which is infused into the words creates a new song, a new way of expressing yourself, so that the same words can express great sadness or great happiness or great, an amazing array of emotions, of array of expressions from the exact same words, because it's, as they say, it's how you say something, not just what you say.
So the most not effective, what is the word I'm looking for? The song that is sung with passion through the heart is the one that everyone remembers, because everyone else's heart syncs up to what is being felt in that moment, what the singer is letting you share in, because it's a sharing that happens when the song is great and the performance is great. You can have different people perform the exact same song, but unless they've touched that passionate part of their being, it doesn't register as something that a person wants to participate in. It's just like background noise. It's on par with elevator music.
Yeah.
Just music in the back, noises in the back, traffic, who wants to get on par with traffic? So allowing yourself and everyone around you sync up with the emotion that rises within you,
Mm.
becomes a song, a real song. And that is how our souls actually sing. It syncs up with the words of Tecumseh,
Mm-hmm.
that you will, once you have died, you will come and sing your song, which is your life.
Mm.
And that's part of what this world is about. You're coming to learn how to truly sing who you are.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it isn't just describing what you did in, I did this and I did this and I did this. I'm reminded of, when you read stories, you also have the same sort of thing, that when the author is writing something that touches you, the reason it touches you is not just because of the words. It's the music of the words. It's the way they fit together, the way they evoke emotion and images in your mind. And you can read an author that wrote these words hundreds or maybe thousands of years ago, and yet feel their emotions through the centuries. Through it becomes something which is trans time.
Right.
Similarly with song, and with the song of your life is trans time. It's not I did this and then I did this and then I did this and then I did this. No, it is an expression of the all of you, which, as you said, you write throughout your life, through action, through passion, through reason, through the combining of the two. And yet when you come to the end, what do you bring with you from this life? Nothing except your soul.
Except your soul. If you kind of look at your life as all through, from beginning to end, you are writing your song that you will sing when all is closed down.
And you want to write a good one.
You sit there and you go, well, what am I singing about? Am I singing about the fact that I did a 9 to 5, collected a paycheck, to the Dolly Parton thing? I mean, really,
Yeah.
Is that what you want? Is that the song you want to bring, or is it something that? And mind you, there's nothing wrong with doing 9 to 5.
No.
When the heart is in it, there is a reason for it, and it's an expression of love. Anything that is an expression of love is worth singing about.
Well, and that's exactly it. I think you've hit something right on the head there. It's not what you do; it's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go out and find this. You can have something which looks like the most wonderful, passionate, incredible career, or incredible things to do, and yet it can be no more than checking something off a list, a bucket list. And that is not living. Living it is in the moment of whatever it is that you do. And it doesn't have to be anything that looks like fun or that people would say, oh, what a wonderful. No. Doing that which is expected, that which is ordinary in an extraordinary way is enough. Doing everything that you do as a synthesis of your reason and your passion, and then adding it to your eternity bank. See, I got it right. And to another bar song of your life, which you will sing. Tecumseh put it so wonderfully. That you bring that song and sing your death song as your gift back to eternity. Back to spirit.
Right.
And so this the Khalil also speaks to this same thing, this wonderful phrase of that your passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix rise above its own ashes. Yes, your passion will burn. It will burn so hot that it will destroy itself in the moment. Your emotions burn so hot, and yet they cool and they fade and they become no more than black cinders and ashes, but yet they will rise again from those ashes um, if they're directed and they inform your song and your reason. So yes, when a performer sings the same words, yet infuses within them their passion, their life force, it becomes a timeless thing, which you then can listen to years later or remember, and it hits you right between the eyes, right in the gut, right in the heart, and speaks and maybe informs a moment that you're having right now. Some trial, um, some similar emotion rises, and a song will come to you and say, yes, that hits me right now. That the words didn't mean the same thing for me when I first heard them, maybe years and years ago, but now they really speak to me.
Right. Well, like we did with one stanza, this stanza, and let it direct your passion with reason, that your passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes. That is the realization that your soul, if you allow it, will go through this cycle of death and resurrection every single day. And what does that mean? For most people, they're thinking, oh, you've got to have some kind of drama going on. That, it's like, just all I can think of is the Italian operas with death and dying, the dying scene, and then resurrection. Very funny, sorry. But that's not what this is. Because drama is of the ego. Living to the point where you burn your passion. Now, what is passion in that sense? You have a clue?
Yeah, well, go ahead. The passion here is again this the life force.
Yes.
It is it is that which rises up through. If you think of it in the terms of chakras, it's that energy which rises up through and is expressed.
It is. Where do I go with that word? Passion for me is love in its unconditional sense. Unconditional love is passion. And it's passion without, because people think of passion, they think of sexual passion. And that's an
part
aspect.
There you go.
Of it. Okay. But passion in terms of a vast love. And when you're saying chakras or chi, people always qualify chi as, oh yes, that's the life force. But it's understanding that it's more than that. It's not just the flows. You can describe the flows of the body in terms of wheels and chakras. But what it is passion. It's love. It is that expression of the divine spark incarnate within you. And yes, it has flows and centers, but to understand that it is more than just a how do I say, it's like a circuit, describing a circuit.
Right. It's not just, that's, we mentioned the word abstraction. That's an abstraction.
Exactly.
What is they call it Christ's passion. The reason they call it the passion is not because it was just drama. it was also love. And you can see that same love in any act of this sort of let's call it perfect intention made into action. The example that we use often, Mother Teresa, is a wonderful, but there are so many, and the acts are often not recognized. You know, when we were in the cancer wards in Memorial Sloan Kettering, the acts of passion were moment by moment, and they weren't just by the people who were suffering or by the kids who were suffering. They were by the doctors, the nurses, the staff. You know, the people who, in their moments, perhaps were dealing, as we all are, with everything that happens in our own lives, and yet they would put on their best to give to these kids who might have needed nothing of what was bothering them, but just a smile or a toy or a hug or the concern, the listening ear. The passion expresses itself in the way that you live this moment in the necessity of the moment, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's all about you. In fact, it oftentimes means it's not about you. but to live in the moment of necessity is to live in the moment of passion, which means that you don't do what's required of you. That's not enough. You do what's needed. It has nothing to do with what's required. And what's required right now is that we go back to the studio for a little break. But take this passion into this commercial break, and we'll come back out on the other side, and we'll talk more about reason and passion.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper.
Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir. There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman. All past shows are available in podcast form. Back to your co-hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And one of these days, we're going to make a compilation of all the conversations we have during the breaks, which are just awesome. But tonight we are talking about Khalil Gibran, and he's a wonderful poet, and his poem, which was from his work called The Prophet, which is basically called Reason and Passion. And we've been going kind of sort of stanza by stanza. I think we'll continue with that, but just the thing where we left off at the end of the last half hour before we went to break is that, in essence, the
And let it direct your passion with reason. Passion may live through its own daily resurrection, and like a phoenix, rise above its own ashes.
Exactly. Is it my turn? I forgot. I've lost track of who's on the stanza now.
It doesn't matter. Whatever.
I think it's my turn. What's our next good break? It's just up to here, perhaps, huh?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, this line, it's into its daily resurrection. Understanding that at the end of your day, there is a death.
There is.
Mm-hmm.
In one way, Margaret, every time you close your eyes and go into the unconsciousness, which we call sleep, but that unconscious state is a death. When you open your eyes in the morning, you are reborn in some ways back into your current incarnation, and we take it for granted to some extent. But
it's understanding that in that process, you are letting go of the actions and events and thoughts of the day, especially if you have executed it all in passion, in unconditional love. And you must let it go because things don't always turn out the way you want them. To allow that to ease at the end of the day when you close your eyes so that you can rise up again the next day ready and clean.
Very true. And the other thing we mentioned right before we went to the break is that, that oftentimes the actions that you perform are of necessity, and they are acts of burning, of in essence of destroying your ego. Because when you act in necessity, it's not about you. But we see this particular phrase, stanza or whatever you would call it, this bit of the poem, is so central and so core. You could almost spend the rest of the time talking about it. But let's move a little bit forward here, because the next utterance here is, I would have you consider your judgment and your appetite, even as you would two loved guests in your house. Surely you would not honor one guest above the other, for he who is more mindful of one loses the love and the faith of both. And why don't you pick up the next one?
The hills, when you sit in the cool shade of the white poplars, sharing the peace, city of distant fields and meadows, then let your heart say in silence, God rests in reason. And when the storm comes, and the mighty winds shake the forest, and thunder and lightning proclaim the majesty of the sky, let your heart say in awe, God moves in passion.
Sure.
In God's sphere, and a leaf in God's forest, you too should rest in reason and move in passion.
And I think, here is sort of a coda to his thought, the central thought that we've been talking about a little bit, because the idea of resting in reason and moving in passion is very similar in many ways to his analogy of reason being the rudder, and passion being the sails. You rest in reason because you use reason to direct your life. It is important that we reason our way through life, even though reason is not enough. Reason is also not something to be abandoned. It is something we've been given. It's a gift. There's, as some other wise poet once said, it is the circumference of passion. Reason is the circumference of passion, but only the circumference, only the boundary, only the outer edge, if you will. Passion is still the bodies. Passion is still the heart, that which moves, that which burns, and move in passion. In other words, we often talk about reason. Every moment of your life, you have to experience, you have to accept, and then you have to say, this is reality. And then you are given the moment of now to decide. So the decision is done in reason, and then you must move to the next moment. And movement is done in passion. So every moment of now, every breath of the universe, every intake, every out-breath is intake. This is reality. It is. The moment of stillness, I will decide to do something. And then the out-breath is the movement in passion to the next moment. Each moment is experienced that way, like a heartbeat. You have an inrush of blood. You have a moment of stillness, and then you have the push into the next moment. The analogies of where we are here are all the way down to our molecules, to our very atoms. But in the body, in the physical, you see it, the indraw breath, the exhalation. You see it in the heart, the pumping action of blood in and blood out. But there's always a stillness, as the Buddhists and as the Tibetans and everyone, the great Om, the mantra, is that the Om Mani Padme I'm going to say it wrong. But then there's the stillness in between. There is not just passion, not just words, but also the stillness, the in-between action and reason.
Stillness is the ability to take it all into account. That is your consciousness. That is the field that you are observing.
Very well put.
The Om, creation that rises, comes to fullness, closes, and opens again. And this is your life. This is your life. Because that motion of opening and closing is your circumference around what is being expressed. It is the containment. It is the patterning of your energy in your life. It is the frequency or the notes of your song.
It's also, as every harmonic has both a node, which is the zero crossing point, and the highest portion of it, which is the amplitude, and that resonance, the resonance that comes contains both this very orderly structure. You can see the whole thing. You say, there it is. There's the wave. But yet, within the wave is this incredible indeterminate passion, the quantumness of it. We don't know where it is at any given time. It is full of energy, this incredible energy, this driving force, which is contained by this sort of almost like, it's not rigid, but it's a structure. It's a structure which contains, but yet is influenced by it's a bubble. It's a membrane. We go into string theory here. The analogies of reason and passion are all the way through us. The reason that they make so much sense and in a fractal way are repeated throughout every structure of the universe. There's this wonderful analogy of in the beginning there was the void. It was formless. And the speaking of the word, which is in essence the capturing of something within a resonance, and this wonderful phrase, let there be light, the poetic creation phrase, which is word, which is structure. It has a length, it has a dimension, but yet it contains all of the energy, all the passion of the universe, which was formless and void until what? Until there was the word within which it could resonate. And yet you say to yourself, well, that's wonderful, but that's just Genesis. Well, yeah, but then if you take that same text and put a little math around it, you basically have the quantum physics beginning of the universe, which is pretty much the same thing, or the one that the Hindus that is described in the the Vishnu opening his eyes and the lotus and all that other stuff. That the analogies in many philosophies and in what we call the mathematics of quantum physics, and the idea of an origin to this universe comes from, in essence, an infinitesimal point of nothingness from which all this energy, all this incredible amount of what we call matter and this incredible amount of what we call energy just kind of whoop. Well, there it is.
Kind of look at it in terms of when you have a graph, you have a sine wave. And the sine wave is the most natural of functions that you can possibly have.
Yeah.
And that everything above the line, positive line, is your universe. And this boop of coming into existence and then suddenly it winking out, that's only because you can only see what's above the line. You can't see the whole picture. It's very much similar to being a two-dimensional creature. There is a creation out there that we as humans cannot perceive or see, but does exist. That's why we always say, you are so much more than what you think. You are is more than your personality, your ego, or your body, or even your likes or dislikes. We know that at a very deep level. We identify with that at a very deep level.
Yeah.
And understanding that science can only define what is in the positive plane.
Not the imaginary.
Not the negative or imaginary or extended. We can only describe what's in the positive plane. We can project in fractals, how you have to keep doing iterations and you keep focusing in, but it's infinite. The patterns that you wind up getting, and repetitive in many ways, because that is the structure of that particular form.
The interesting thing is it's repetitive yet iterative, and therefore doesn't repeat. You find what look like very similar patterns, but are always somewhat unique. They're always a little bit different.
Right.
That we've gone a little bit far afield, but it is, the battlefield is also the universe in that regard. The lines, the drawn up lines, if you will, are between energy and form, and the form, as Tolle says, dissolves, but yet form also arises constantly. The universe is constantly forming and deforming, unforming, if you will.
Unforming.
It's in a constant state of flux, both informing and deforming, or informationing and deformationing, if you will.
Well, uninforming or dissolving.
Yes.
Deformation is just a warping.
Right. I yield to your D versus un, but the point being is exactly that. Is this this coming into being and this going out of being is an analogy of what we see as the again, going back right to cutting edge science, what they call the vacuum energy. And the vacuum energy is exactly what it sounds like. It's sort of an oxymoron. In completely empty space, and by empty we mean empty of all things, empty of all energy, empty of all matter, just empty. Yet there is something called the vacuum energy, and the vacuum energy is sort of an oxymoron, because you say, well, there's nothing there, and you go, yes, that's correct. And so how do you mean there's energy? And we say, yes, that's correct. because the energy of the vacuum is the energy of the universe's will to be, if you will, if you want to talk about it that way. It is that which we don't understand and we call dark energy. We don't know why it's there. We can't see it. We can't feel it. We don't understand it. And yet we know it's there because we can measure this measureless thing in completely empty space, and yet without ever being able to really put our arms around it, our physical thoughts around it. This, in many ways, is an analogy of this constantly coming into being. The vacuum energy can be thought of and analyzed, and be given an analogy of a pair of particles. It's not really, but let's just say it is, that come into being for an incredibly short period of time and then destroy each other in that same almost period of time. And in that coming into being and destroying, there's a tiny infinitesimal quanta of energy that's produced, and that drives the universe outward into what we don't know. Just being. It's the being state. The universe is like, I'm here. The vacuum energy. To deal with it.
Try to deal with it.
Try to deal with it.
What I wanted to ask you again, was it that all the matter that we see, the energy that we see, only accounts for 25% of?
All the matter is 5%, and all the energy we can account for is another 20-odd%. Yeah.
See, that's interesting to me, because when you have what we were talking about before,
Yeah.
the graph. When
Yeah.
you have the graph of something that is an X and Y, and you have 0 as its origin, the positive side that we always use is the positive X and the positive Y. You do your you call it points, your X and Y points. Usually it's just that particular field. But the other 3 quadrants have half an element of negative and half an element of positive, and then negative, looked on as 3/4 of what that creation is. That is the dark energy and the dark matter.
Yeah.
It's because we can't see it.
Right. What we experience is 1/4, the quarter which is all positive,
Right.
and the rest of it we can perceive in other ways.
Well, we can try to, but
Well,
that's what I mean. What
right.
we glean out of it is either that half positive, negative, or the other half negative, positive. The other 2 quadrants that have a little bit of positive in it, or half positive in it.
Yeah, there's some effects that we can, and that's a beautiful analogy, a mathematical analogy of the physicality of now, which is only some portion of the actual now part that we exist upon, the battlefield, if you will, the actual battlefield.
And that's interesting, because that means that the positive has become the battlefield for the unseen
and the unknown. Oh my goodness, we've gotten very, very deep here. But let's extricate ourselves just a little and climb right back up into the passion and the reason. And I'm Michael Lyons, the reason.
You are. He is the reason.
Yeah. And you are.
And I'm Margaret.
Yeah.
And very much the passion.
Very much the passion. And this has been the Soul of Everyman, and thank you, as always.
Thank you for listening.